The Megalodon, once known as the biggest apex predator in the deep blue sea. Although having gone extinct millions of years ago, some evidence says otherwise. Megalodons may not be related to great white sharks at all, and in fact may be even longer than previously predicted. This article was released back in January of 2024 and uploaded by Birkbeck University of London. We once thought that Megalodons were just a much bigger, almost identical copy of the great white sharks, but new research speculates that they instead were longer, slimmer, and much slower in terms of speed. Scientists are even arguing if they were bigger than the blue whale, since there were also discoveries done on whale remains that had markings on them that matched the shape of the Megalodon teeth. Using a very limited amount of fossils that they could find, extremely rare column vertebrae, and fragments of jaws, this helped them come to another conclusion, that because some of the vertebrae, similar to great whites, were actually missing towards the tail, it was actually 20% longer. The tail was originally in an incorrect position, so if they had to estimate how it would move, the cartilage inside would have been crushed this way. So it had to be moved further down. The estimation for its length with this new piece of information is estimated to be around 25 meters or 82 feet long. What about some alleged real-life footage of the Megalodon? Scientists love to place down cameras all over the ocean floor, mainly to observe marine life and its wonderful ecosystem, while also making these live for the public to watch. It wasn't until a random person who was watching these cameras for fun noticed something extremely off-putting swim by on one of the recordings. Immediately, scientists were all on that to see what the heck he was talking about, and they noticed a giant fin swimming across the screen. They know the Megalodon doesn't exist, other than the fact that they make a comment about how a Megalodon tooth that was discovered not too long ago was only aged to be around 10,000 years old. They were said to have gone extinct millions of years ago, so how is this possible? Researchers did their best to try and come up with a rough estimate as to how big this fish actually was, relying on depth perspective from the camera and the overall equipment that they used down below. The estimation that they came up with was over 62 feet long, which doesn't surprise us because we now know Megalodons are thought to be much longer now. Creepy stuff. An undisturbed Megalodon tooth chilling at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. On average, sharks will lose around 40,000 teeth throughout their lifetime, and so did the Megalodon, which is why a majority of discoveries from this creature were about its gigantic chompers. The rarity of finding a Megalodon tooth in the exact same position that the giant shark had lost it 3.5 million years ago is an anomaly in itself. It was a team of researchers who discovered this tooth about 3,000 meters below. It was completely standing straight up, as if someone had just plopped it down in that position. They were incredibly lucky to find it amongst a bed of rocks because it blended in so well. They described the tooth as having a broken top and having saw-like edges. Scientists are usually able to tell if it's a Megalodon tooth based on its size alone, with some teeth being as big as an adult male hand, if not bigger. This one was still slightly smaller, but due to how old this tooth was, they are going with the assumption it was once part of the giant beast. Thankfully, due to its placement, the currents weren't strong enough to keep sediment from growing and thus preserving it quite well. It's one thing to find a singular tooth, but what about several in a specific area? Researchers from the West Australian Museum decided to take a little rendezvous down to the rocks in Cape Range National Park. These rocks are said to be around 6 to 10 million years old and were speculated to once be an ancient seabed. They found quite a handful of fossilized shark teeth embedded in these rocks, some of these even belonging to the extinct Megalodon. The museum's head of Earth and Planetary Sciences, Michael Siverson, stated, "Essentially, we were just scratching the surface. I reckon when it comes to these Megalodon teeth, there would be thousands exposed on the surface because it's such a huge area." Based on the teeth that they found, they're assuming that the length of the shark could have been 19 meters long, and based on that, it could have weighed around 50 to 60 tons. What was once thought to be a nursery with the abundance of teeth was probably actually a feeding ground for these creatures. Dr. Sivenson stated, "When you are 10 to 15 meters long, there is not much that can sustain you. You can't be chasing sardines." They have to be really careful in dissolving the limestone around the teeth, which can take a year or two, because the last thing they'd want to do is damage the tooth with too much acid. Megalodons might have been more powerful and scarier than we originally thought them to be. Scientists had originally given a generous estimate for about 15 to 50 meters in length as the average for the shark, but it might just be more than that. Usually, how they're able to do this is track down the nitrogen in older animals, whether or not that they had nitrogen isotopes of 14 or 15. From my understanding, carnivores usually have a greater abundance of nitrogen 15 than in comparison to herbivores that are more on the nitrogen 14 scale. Again, I'm not a scientist. But with the help of the Megalodon teeth, since shark remains are only cartilage and therefore will never be really found in the ocean, scientists found that the enamel left over in the Megalodon teeth had huge amounts of nitrogen 15, meaning animals with nitrogen 15 will search for nitrogen-rich prey, and the Megalodon had an ungodly amount of it. Well, there is still plenty of research being done on the Megalodon teeth to this day, with our original ideas of the monster constantly changing as new discoveries come to light, as stated previously. Using 25 Megalodon teeth found in the Reverte and Vidal regions, scientists were able to find more interesting information on both the adults and offspring of these ocean beasts. They found potential nurseries all over the world, which include the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Pacific basins. These specific areas that are widely spread out played a huge role in making sure they had a dense enough population to stick around for as long as they did. Based on some of the teeth, they were able to make estimates that some of the younger juvenile sharks were approximately 36 in length, while 1-month-olds were around 13 feet. The adults, though, based on these specific sets of teeth, are assumed to be 52.5 feet long, with their head alone reaching 15.3 feet. Scientists, however, are wondering if creating these nurseries had something to do with their population being wiped out, alongside other theories such as an exploding star, or the species not being able to keep up with the changing temperatures of the oceans. There was also the possibility that they were outmaneuvered by their much smaller cousins, the great white sharks, which is kind of weird to say. Imagine finding a Megalodon shark tooth on your birthday. This lucky guy on his 5th birthday managed to find the iconic shark's tooth while digging in the sands at Myrtle Beach. It reached 4 inches in length and was almost as big as the birthday boy's hand. The family had then taken it to be reviewed over by researchers, who had confirmed it belonged to the Megalodon. Marissa, the mother, had even stated that it seems to run in the family, with members finding crazy items across the beaches. She says, "My husband is now determined to keep looking for other teeth. He found a huge conch shell in Cancun a few years ago, so I think it runs in the family." A PhD student from Swansea University, Jack Cooper, specializes in studying sharks and the Megalodon and had reported that it's a very common tooth in the Megalodon family. Cooper says that the size of the tooth would belong to a pretty big shark too. Assuming it's an anterior tooth, center of the mouth, then you're looking at a shark that was about 32 to 39 feet long. I am very jealous that they found such a cool tooth at such a young age. That would be a dream find for me. This next video of a supposed Megalodon was captured by a group of scientists back in 2006. The beginning of this video is quite amazing to watch, as we see a giant beefy boy emerge from the sandy ocean bottom, its body illuminated by all the camera lights that surround it. It decides to stick around for a bit longer too, really giving the scientist a show of its fantastic appearance. This was spotted at 3,300 feet below the surface, right off the coast of Molokai. And despite it being absolutely enormous, it is sadly not a Megalodon, but rather a blunt-nosed 6-gill shark. This lovely specimen was measured to be around 18 feet long, but they can usually grow up to as big as 20 feet in length. Their maximum known mass right now is said to be 1,300 pounds. That is a big boy. They are a primitive shark species, with similar fossils of their family being found and dated to over 200 million years ago. Might not be a Megalodon, but still probably a living fossil. Could the Megalodon still be around? Who knows? The ocean is vast. What do you think? Let me know down below, and I will see you all in the next video. Stay creepy.